There are moments in life that split your memory into before and after. This was one of them. It was a Tuesday evening, the sky dimming into that soft orange hue that only seems to show up during soccer season. Our daughter, Lily, had practice at the middle school field, and I was packing her cleats into her bag when Danielle walked into the kitchen, her eyes serious, lips pressed in a line that made my stomach drop. "We need to talk," she said, and I immediately braced for impact. You see, we'd been together almost 15 years and married 10. I wasn't stupid. The signs had been there quiet ones, but signs all the same. Late-night texts she'd angle away from my view. More makeup, shorter dresses, frequent solo girls' nights. But you try to push those thoughts down because the alternative is too ugly to entertain. She sat at the kitchen island, her fingers drumming nervously against the marble. "I've been thinking," she started, "that maybe it's time we spice things up." Spice things up? I repeated, like a damn echo, even though I already knew what she meant. The words she said next didn't shock me, but they still sliced deep. "I want to try an open marriage." I blinked hard. It didn't register at first. My mind ran through all the possible meanings, trying to find one that didn't mean what I knew it meant. "You mean, like dating other people?" She nodded, too eagerly. "Just see what else is out there. Not to replace us. Just to explore. A way to grow." I stared at her. At her glowing skin, the new push-up bra I hadn't seen before, the light scent of perfume she only wore when she was trying to impress someone. I should have gotten angry right then and there. I should have stood up and told her no, that she was out of her mind. But instead, all I could do was nod numbly, heart pounding in my chest. "Sure," I heard myself say, "if that's what you want." What I didn't say was that I'd agreed because I was scared of losing her, of what it would mean for Lily, for our life. Maybe, just maybe, if I played along, it would burn itself out. Maybe she'd realize it wasn't what she wanted after all. Maybe it was just a phase. That night, I lay awake in bed listening to the shower running longer than usual, and I wondered who she was really imagining when she touched herself behind the closed door. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. And yet, every inch of my body burned with the need to know. 2 days later, we were at Lily's soccer practice. I stood on the sidelines, trying to act like everything was normal. Danielle was sitting in a folding chair across the field, glued to her phone, occasionally smirking like she'd just read a dirty joke. Probably had. That's when I noticed Rachel. Rachel, the recently divorced mom who used to carpool with Danielle. I hadn't seen her in weeks, not since her husband moved out. She was standing by the chain-link fence, arms folded, watching her daughter Maya run laps. Our eyes met, and something passed between us. Recognition. Not just that we knew each other, but something deeper. Shared damage. She gave me a small nod, and I returned it. I didn't smile. I couldn't. But I didn't look away, either. I hadn't really noticed her before, not like that. But that day, something was different. Maybe it was the way the breeze played with her dark auburn hair, or the way her leggings clung to her hips. Maybe it was the way she wasn't looking at her phone, or the fact that she actually looked like she cared about what her daughter was doing on the field. Danielle didn't even look up when Lily scored a goal, but Rachel clapped. And when she looked back at me, there was something in her eyes, something I hadn't seen in a long time. Attention, curiosity, maybe even interest. I didn't smile, but my chest did something strange. A small breath I didn't know I'd been holding released. For the first time in days, I didn't feel entirely invisible. On the drive home, Danielle was on her phone again. I asked about dinner. She said she had plans. Didn't even glance at me when she said it. "I might be out late," she added. I nodded, trying to keep my voice level. "Date?" She looked up, surprised, maybe even impressed. "Yeah, you okay with that?" No, I wasn't. Not even close. "Sure," I said. My jaw ached from how hard I clenched it. That night, I sat in the living room, the game on mute, sipping a whiskey that tasted like acid. I kept checking the clock, wondering what she was doing, who she was with, whether she was thinking about me at all. Then I thought of Rachel. Her steady eyes. The way she stood like she wasn't afraid to be seen. The way her lips curled when she watched Maya run. And that was the moment something inside me started to shift. I didn't want an open marriage. But if this was the game Danielle wanted to play, I wasn't going to lose. The next time I saw Rachel was Thursday evening. Soccer practice again. I parked near the bleachers, watching Lily sprint across the field with more energy than I'd seen in her all week. Funny how kids stay so unaware of adult collapse, at least until it spills out far enough to soak them. Rachel stood alone, coffee cup in hand, wearing an oversized flannel shirt and tight jeans that hugged her hips in a way I'd never really appreciated before. I walked toward her without thinking, drawn in by something beyond the physical. Maybe it was the fact that she wasn't pretending. No fake smiles. No performative Instagram poses. Just her, real and raw. "Hey," I said, sliding up beside her. She glanced over and smiled, soft, but real. "Hey yourself. You look like someone who hasn't slept. That obvious?" She nodded, sipping her coffee. "Let me guess. Open marriage not all it's cracked up to be." That caught me off guard. I turned fully toward her. "She told you." Rachel laughed, short and dry. "She didn't have to. Danielle's not exactly subtle. And besides," she added, glancing at me sideways, "I've been there. Different shape. Same pain." We stood in silence for a moment, watching the kids run drills. I felt a strange comfort in her presence, like an invisible weight lightened just a little. "What happened to yours?" I asked. "My husband," she replied, then sighed. "Started working late a lot. Then I found an Uber receipt to a hotel bar. He tried to lie, said it was a client dinner. But the client's name turned out to be Lexi. 24. Redhead. Into fitness." She smiled, but there was venom behind it. "Damn." "Yeah," she said. "It hurt. Still does. But the worst part? The loneliness. After a while, you start questioning everything. Your worth. Your attractiveness. Your sanity." I turned to her. "You're not crazy." Her eyes flicked to mine, and for a moment, the air between us thickened. I could smell the vanilla in her perfume, faint and familiar. The sun dipped lower, casting shadows across her cheekbones. My gaze dropped, briefly, to her lips, then quickly back up. "Thanks," she said, her voice lower now. Something lingered in that silence. A quiet understanding. A recognition of two people standing at the edge of emotional cliffs, toes curling over the drop. Danielle showed up 20 minutes late, all legs and confidence. Wearing a dress too short for a kid's event and heels that didn't belong anywhere near a soccer field. Her laugh, forced and loud, ripped through the quiet as she sauntered over to a group of other moms. She didn't even look at me. Rachel's eyes followed her. "She's glowing," she said carefully. "She's been on a few dates," I muttered. "You okay with that?" "No," I admitted. But I said yes. "So here we are." Rachel nodded. "It's weird, isn't it? When someone you love suddenly decides they need something, or someone else. Like all the rules you lived by get rewritten overnight." "Exactly," I said, almost too fast. She looked at me again. "You're not going to last long in this kind of arrangement." I laughed under my breath. "What gave it away?" "Your eyes," she said, still too full of hurt. Over the next couple weeks, we kept running into each other, by accident at first, then intentionally. We shared coffees on the sidelines. Talked more about our kids, then our marriages, then ourselves. The flirtation wasn't blatant. It came in small doses, a brush of her fingers when handing me a water bottle, the way she lingered in conversation just a little too long. But there was something warm behind it. A flicker of curiosity that danced close to the flame without jumping in. Danielle, meanwhile, seemed to be enjoying her new freedom a little too much. Late nights became normal. Girls' nights that left her reeking of wine and unfamiliar cologne. She stopped checking in, stopped asking me anything. I was a ghost in my own marriage, a placeholder for her husband while she chased excitement elsewhere. One night after practice, Rachel and I stood near the parking lot, the kids still wrapped up in their own little world. "You want to know the worst part?" I asked, voice tight. "Tell me." She doesn't even try to hide it anymore. Like I'm supposed to just accept that my wife needs someone else to feel alive. Like the version of me she married just expired. Rachel tilted her head. "Maybe she thinks you'll never leave." "Maybe," I muttered. "But I'm starting to think she wouldn't even notice if I did." Rachel stepped closer. The air between us shifted again, thicker this time. Heavier. She smelled like rain on asphalt, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. "You're not invisible," she whispered. Our eyes locked, and the ground tilted beneath me. Not a kiss. Not yet. But something had begun. A pull I couldn't stop. A current dragging us both out of the wreckage we'd been left in. And I didn't want to swim back to shore. It was the kind of night that carried a chill in the air but made everything feel sharper, like the world had more edges than usual. Practice had ended late. The floodlights buzzed overhead, casting eerie shadows across the empty field. Most parents had already gone, but I was still there, gathering stray water bottles and shin guards with Rachel. "Looks like we're the cleanup crew," she said, crouching to grab a forgotten hoodie. I chuckled. Story of my life. Maya and Lily were off with the team manager's daughter, loading cones into the equipment shed. We were alone, at least for a few minutes. Rachel stood, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Her flannel shirt was gone tonight, replaced by a dark fitted sweater that hugged her waist and hinted at curves beneath. The neckline dipped just enough to catch my attention, but not too much. Classy, confident. "Thanks for staying," she said, quieter now. I shrugged, playing it cool. I like the quiet after the chaos. Feels real. She looked up at me, the corner of her mouth twitching in a smirk. "You always talk like that." "Like what?" "Like you're carrying around a storm in your chest and just learned how to name the clouds." That one made me laugh. Guess I'm more transparent than I thought. She stepped closer, her voice low and teasing. "It's not a bad thing. Most guys I know wouldn't dare show what's under the surface." "Most guys are full of shit," I said, and immediately regretted the edge in my tone. Rachel didn't flinch. Yeah, mine was. We stood there for a moment, tension threading between us like barbed wire. Sharp, tight, delicate. The kind you don't want to touch, but you can't stop staring at. And then she said, "Come with me," turning toward the bleachers. I followed without asking why. She led me behind the aluminum rows, where the steel supports cut the light into shadows. It was quiet here, hidden, secluded. The sounds of the parking lot were muffled. The distant laughter of kids felt a world away. Rachel leaned against one of the beams, her eyes fixed on me like she was measuring something. Maybe my resolve. Maybe my fear. "Why here?" I asked, voice lower than I meant it to be. "Because I don't want to pretend anymore," she said. "Not for one more second." I stepped closer. We were only inches apart now, and the heat from her body seeped into mine. My hands hovered at my sides, not quite sure what to do. Her breath hitched, subtle, but real, and she looked up at me through those lashes in a way that made the air feel too thick to breathe. "This okay?" I asked. She nodded once. "Yeah, it's more than okay." I leaned in, slowly, hesitant. Her lips met mine halfway. The kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't one of those desperate, frantic collisions that came out of nowhere. It was deliberate, hungry in a slow burn kind of way. Her mouth was soft, warm, and tasted faintly of cinnamon gum and something sweeter I couldn't place. Her hand slid up my chest, resting over my heartbeat like she was grounding herself in it. I responded instinctively, placing a hand on her waist, pulling her just close enough to feel the curve of her body press into mine. A small moan escaped her lips, unintentional but undeniable. It wasn't just sex that pulsed under the surface, it was want. Desire, yes, but also something tender. Something human. She pulled back first, breath shallow, eyes glassy with emotion. "Wow," she whispered. I blinked. Yeah. We stood there for a moment longer, not speaking, just letting the silence wrap around us like a secret. "I should get Maya," she finally said, brushing her thumb against my jaw before stepping back. I nodded, watching her go. My lips still tingled, my mind reeling. I wasn't sure what this was yet, an escape? A mistake? A spark? But I knew one thing. It was the first time since Danielle's announcement that I felt wanted, desired, seen, and I wasn't sure I could go back now. Sex was still off the table, technically, but my body didn't care about technicalities. In the days after that kiss under the bleachers, Rachel and I had become something unspoken. We didn't label it. We didn't talk about what it meant, but we knew. Our texts turned flirtatious. Our glances lingered. And at every soccer practice, some magnetic pull yanked us closer together, like gravity had redrawn its own rules just for us. Danielle, meanwhile, was on full display. She'd embraced her open marriage lifestyle like it was some kind of influencer trend. New outfits, new perfume, new rules. She'd scroll through her phone at dinner, giggling at texts and snapping filtered selfies while I cut Lily's chicken or tried to ask about her math homework. "Sorry, babe," Danielle would say without even looking up. "I just need to confirm a reservation. This new sushi place is impossible to get into." "Date?" I'd ask, voice neutral. "Maybe," she'd reply, the smile not even bothering to fade. She was playing her game openly, recklessly, and it was working. I felt smaller every day. But Rachel made me feel like a man again. At first, it was harmless. A long hug in the parking lot. her hand grazing mine when we passed water bottles. Whispered jokes that made our faces flush. But then came the Friday night game. It was late October, and the bleachers were packed for the home match against Fairview. Parents wore scarves and shouted cheers while the girls chased the ball up and down the field under the cold lights. I sat next to Rachel in the back row. Danielle showed up 30 minutes late, in heels again, hair done up, smelling like hotel shampoo. She didn't even see me. Rachel leaned in, whispering, "She's glowing. She's glowing because she's fucking someone new." Rachel didn't flinch. She stared straight ahead, hands tucked in her coat, her voice just low enough that no one else could hear. "You still sleeping with her?" "No," I said. "Haven't in weeks." She looked at me then, and I caught the flicker of something I'd seen once before: relief. After the game, as the crowd cleared out, Rachel and I took the long way around the field to help collect gear. The school was nearly empty. I held the equipment bag while she picked up the last few cones. We ended up at the back of the school building, where the wind was quieter and the security lights cast a warm glow against the brick. We didn't speak. I leaned against the wall. She stepped in, close. Our lips met again, this time quicker, hotter. My hands were in her hair, her hips pressing into mine. The taste of her mouth erased everything. Danielle, the open marriage, the cold concrete under my boots. She made a sound against my lips, a hungry little hum that shot straight through me. "I think about you," she whispered between kisses, her breath warm against my neck. "When I'm alone." I swallowed hard, my hand sliding along the curve of her lower back. "Tell me what you think about." Her voice caught. "Your hands. Your mouth. The way you looked at me under the bleachers like I wasn't broken." We didn't cross the line that night. Not all the way. But we teetered on the edge of it. She pressed her body to mine, moaning softly as I kissed her neck, my hand slipping beneath her sweater to trace warm skin. My jeans grew tight, my pulse erratic. And then, just when it felt like we'd lose ourselves completely, she pulled back, trembling. "Not here," she whispered. "Not yet." I nodded, breathless. She adjusted her sweater, cheeks flushed and eyes wild. "But I want to." "I do too," I said. "God, Rachel. I want all of it." She smiled, bittersweet. "Then we wait. Just a little longer." That weekend, Danielle spent the night at a friend's and didn't come home until almost noon. She strutted into the kitchen like she owned it, wearing one of those silky, oversized t-shirts that screamed "I had sex last night" without saying a word. "Morning," she chirped. I didn't reply. I just stared at her, wondering how we'd fallen this far, how she could come back from someone else's bed and still ask if I'd watered the plants. "What's with the look?" she asked. "Nothing." She smirked. "Don't act like you're not enjoying this too." That was the moment I realized she didn't suspect a thing. She thought I was home, waiting, playing the loyal husband while she got to live her fantasy. She had no idea another woman had me aching in ways she never could anymore. Later that week, Rachel and I met in her car behind the school after a rescheduled practice. The kids had gone, and we were supposed to talk. But we didn't get far. One look at her, and all the restraint I'd built up shattered. We kissed hard, fast, mouths open and hungry. I ran my hands up her thighs, fingers brushing lace beneath her leggings. She gasped into my mouth as I slid lower, cupping her, feeling the wet heat already soaking through. "I want you," she whispered, her head falling back. "God, I want you so bad." "Not here," I managed. "You deserve better than a back seat." She smiled, panting. "Then take me somewhere real." We stayed like that for a while, tangled in the dim light, touching, tasting, barely stopping ourselves from going all the way. It wasn't just lust. It was need. Two people finding something alive again in each other's arms. But the guilt started to gnaw. Not because of Danielle. No, that ship had sailed. But because of Lily. And Maya. We were supposed to be grown-ups. Parents. And here we were, sneaking kisses like teenagers behind the gym. Lying. Pretending. Rachel said Maya had started asking questions. "Why are you smiling so much? Who's texting you, Mommy?" And I could feel it too. Lily looked at me differently now. Curious, watchful, like she could sense the shift in the air. We hadn't been caught, but we were playing offsides. And in this game, someone was bound to get hurt. We didn't plan for it to happen that night. In fact, I told myself all day that it wasn't going to. That I could keep the boundary between wanting Rachel and having her intact. But when you spent weeks walking along the edge of temptation, the slightest shift can send you over. And she made me fall willingly. It started with a text. Kids are at a sleepover tonight. House is quiet. If you want to talk. I'm here. Talk. Right. The second I walked through her front door, I knew we weren't going to be doing much talking. Rachel was barefoot, in a faded V-neck tee and those soft drawstring shorts that clung to her hips in the most delicious way. No makeup. Hair in a loose ponytail. But I swear, she never looked more beautiful. Hey, she said softly, stepping aside as I entered. Hey. My voice cracked with tension already wound too tight. She reached for my hand, and that was it. One gentle tug and my mouth was on hers, our bodies pressing together with weeks of restrained hunger. We barely made it to the couch. Her shirt came off first, and I took my time tracing the soft curve of her sides, the dip of her spine, the delicate slope of her breasts. She moaned into my ear, hips arching into mine as I kissed down her stomach. You're sure? I whispered, hands at the hem of her shorts. Rachel nodded, her breath shaky. I've never been more sure of anything. When I finally slid inside her, it felt like exhaling after years of holding my breath. She gasped, quiet and full of need, wrapping her legs around my waist, pulling me in deeper. We moved together like we were making up for lost time. Her fingers dug into my back. My name on her lips wasn't just pleasure, it was release. Grief. Longing. She didn't cry, but I could feel the emotion shaking out of her in every kiss, every shiver, every whispered, "Don't stop." It wasn't just sex. It was a reckoning. When it was over, we lay tangled together, our bodies slick with sweat, her head resting against my chest as our breathing slowly leveled. Neither of us spoke for a while. Words felt too heavy, too small for the enormity of what had just happened. Finally, she whispered, "I needed that." I kissed the top of her head. So did I. Rachel sat up, pulling the blanket over her chest, her cheeks flushed but her eyes clear. You felt it too, didn't you? That wasn't just. I mean, I know I invited you over, but... I sat up too, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I felt everything. She let out a quiet laugh. God, you make me feel 17 again. And not in the bad way? In the best way, she said, leaning in for another soft kiss. I forgot what it was like to feel wanted. I understood that all too well. The next morning, I left before dawn, sneaking out of her house like I was in some high school rom-com gone too far. The guilt hit in waves, not because I betrayed Danielle, but because I hadn't told Rachel what Danielle said the night before. She'd mentioned seeing Rachel's car. We were in the kitchen, Lily brushing her teeth upstairs, when Danielle leaned on the counter, sipping coffee, eyes watching me like a hawk through thick lashes. I saw Rachel's car near that hotel off the interstate yesterday, she said. I froze. Yeah, kind of weird, don't you think? I played it cool. She probably had errands. Danielle smirked, turning her attention back to her muck. Probably. She knew something, or at least suspected, but I wasn't ready to admit anything. Not to her. Not yet. Later that day, I met Rachel at the school again. She smiled, but I could see the tension behind it. She leaned against her SUV, arms folded. Maya said something strange this morning, she said. What kind of strange? She asked me if I was dating someone. Said she saw me texting and smiling too much lately. My stomach dropped. What did you tell her? I deflected, she said. But she's smart. She knows. We stood in silence for a while. Then Rachel looked at me and said something that hit harder than anything Danielle had said in months. I'm not ashamed of us. But I'm scared. Scared of what? Of losing everything. Of being the villain. You're not, I said. You're not a villain, Rachel. Neither are you, she replied. But that doesn't mean this won't explode. And she was right. We'd made it through the first half. But there was still a whole second half to play. And overtime was coming. It happened on a Monday. One of those painfully ordinary ones, cold toast, lukewarm coffee, Lily forgetting her lunch, and me juggling texts from Rachel between Zoom meetings. Nothing explosive. Nothing unusual. Until Danielle cornered me by the laundry room. She held one of my t-shirts, folded, neat, as if she'd been planning the ambush. Her eyes were calm, which made it worse. Danielle wasn't a shouter. She was surgical. You've been off lately, she said, voice clipped, like she was reading from a script. I glanced up. Off how? Distant. Quiet. You come home and smile, but your eyes don't. I shrugged. We agreed this would be messy, didn't we? That's not what this is. I know you. She took a step closer. You're not just coping. You're hiding something. My heart pounded. I forced a laugh. You're accusing me of something? In an open marriage? Don't play dumb, she said, her voice cutting sharper now. There's a difference between openness and deception. I didn't answer. Couldn't. She dropped the shirt on the counter. You can tell me if you're seeing someone. Like you've been telling me. I snapped, the first crack in my composure showing. Danielle blinked. So it's true. I stayed silent. Is it someone I know? That landed like a punch to the ribs. Because yeah, she was sniffing in the right direction. She gave a hollow laugh, stepping back. You said you weren't into this. That you were doing it for me. I was. And now you're not. I paused. Now? I'm doing it for me. Her eyes narrowed. So who is she? I gave her nothing. Danielle didn't press further. She just shook her head like she was disappointed in me for playing her game and daring to win. You're colder than I thought, she said, turning away. And just like that, she left me standing there in a house that suddenly felt like it had no walls, just broken beams and silence. That night, I lay awake while Danielle texted in bed beside me. Her screen lit up her face in a blue glow, her lips twitching into a smile I hadn't seen in years. I turned to the ceiling, hands clenched behind my head. I wasn't jealous anymore. I was done. The next day, Rachel was quiet. We met briefly at the park while the girls were at a friend's birthday. The trees had started turning red and gold, and the wind made everything feel unsettled. She confronted you, Rachel guessed. Yeah. Did you tell her? No names. But she knows. Rachel looked away, hugging her arms against her chest. Maya asked again this morning. She saw your name on my phone. I winced. What did you say? I lied. I hate that I lied to her. We sat on a bench, not touching, letting the cold do its work. A part of me wanted to pull her close, bury my face in her hair, whisper that none of it mattered. But it did matter. We were playing with more than desire now. We were playing with the people who needed us most. Rachel stood slowly. I can't keep pretending much longer. I know. I love being with you. But we need to decide what this is. I looked up at her, eyes searching. It's real. I know it is. But we both have daughters, she said. And they're going to find out. Maybe not now. Maybe not next week. But eventually. I stood too, reaching for her hand. She let me take it. Then we figure it out. Together. She nodded, though her eyes were glassy. I'm scared. Me too. We hugged. And for a while, that was enough. Just holding each other while the leaves fell and the world spun outside our little cocoon. But cocoon or not, we both knew the storm was coming. That evening, back home, Danielle didn't speak a word to me. She didn't have to. The tension in the air was suffocating. Lily, meanwhile, had started asking questions too. Why doesn't Mommy eat dinner with us anymore? She's busy, I answered. Work stuff. But she's always on her phone, she said. Even when I ask her something. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just told her I loved her, tucked her in, and turned off the light. But her words haunted me all night. Because we'd both stopped pretending. And the kids were starting to notice. It happened on a Saturday at the biggest soccer match of the season. The kind of game that draws all the parents out, lawn chairs in hand, Starbucks cups cradled like security blankets. The bleachers were packed. Danielle showed up first, early for once, wearing tight jeans and a cream sweater that hugged her in all the right places. She looked radiant, like a woman glowing from attention she didn't have to fight for anymore. Rachel arrived 15 minutes later with Maya, her face more composed than usual but lacking her normal warmth. She looked my way briefly, just a flicker, but it was enough. That silent acknowledgement we'd mastered. I sat 2 rows behind them, close enough to watch, far enough to hide. But fate didn't care for distance that day. Around halftime, a group of the moms clustered near the snack shack. Soccer moms, the gossip cartel. Danielle was already standing with them, sipping her kombucha or whatever overpriced drink she carried around now. Rachel wandered closer, probably out of habit. Maya and Lily were playing tag by the fence. That's when it happened. One of the moms, a tall redhead named Gina, chuckled loud enough for me to hear from where I sat. You know what's funny? She said, flipping her sunglasses on top of her head. Rachel, and she pointed her thumb back toward me, have gotten really close this season. I froze. Danielle laughed. Light. Controlled. But the edge in her smile betrayed her. Rachel's posture changed. I saw it happen. Shoulders tensing. Jaw locking. Another mom chimed in. They're always chatting after practice. It's kinda cute, actually. Gina smirked. I mean, if I didn't know better. Danielle tilted her head and said, maybe you don't know better. There it was. A moment. Small but loaded. Rachel shifted uncomfortably and looked at Danielle. Are we really doing this? Danielle raised her brow, smiling thinly. Doing what? Their eyes held each other's for a beat too long. The other moms felt the chill in the air and started quietly backing away, eyes wide with sudden interest in literally anything else. Rachel turned and walked off. Danielle's eyes followed her, then flicked to me, and she smiled. Not a warm smile, not even a cruel one. It was the smile of someone who'd just realized she had a weapon and was dying to use it. That night, everything cracked. I was folding laundry on the couch, trying to keep some part of life normal, when Danielle walked in holding my phone. She didn't speak. She just stood there, reading, scrolling. I froze. What are you doing? Just confirming a theory, she said calmly. You should really turn off notifications. Or pick better code names for your girlfriend. My stomach dropped. How long? She asked. Danielle. Don't deflect, she snapped. I already know. I just want to hear you say it. I swallowed. A few weeks. She laughed bitterly. A few weeks. Wow. She tossed the phone onto the coffee table and crossed her arms. You couldn't even pick someone discreet. She wasn't a choice, I said quietly. She's a person. Someone I connected with. Bullshit. She's in our circle. You brought this into our marriage first. We agreed, she snapped, stepping closer, that anything we did stayed out of the family, out of the school, out of the kids' lives. You broke that. You broke our marriage when you asked to open it. I snapped back. Don't pretend this started with me. She stared at me, breathing hard. You don't even care that I slept with other people, I said. You only care that it wasn't anonymous, that it was someone close, someone real. I care that you embarrassed me, she hissed, that you've got people whispering about me behind my back. I laughed bitterly. Now you know how it feels. Silence fell between us like an anvil. Then she said, do you love her? The question hit like a hammer. And what scared me most was that I didn't know the answer. I care about her, I said. Danielle turned her head, blinking fast. I don't want this anymore, I said quietly. Not the games. Not the pretending. You want a divorce? I want honesty. Peace. And I can't have either of those here. She didn't reply, just walked upstairs, one deliberate step at a time, as if carrying something heavy. Probably the truth. I texted Rachel that night. She knows. I didn't tell her your name, but I think she already knew. Her reply came minutes later. I figured. Everyone at the field did. Then another. I'm not ashamed of us. But I don't want this to destroy our kids. Neither did I. But it was already happening. The whispers had started. And soon, the storm wouldn't just be ours anymore. The silence in the house was no longer just uncomfortable. It was poisonous. Danielle moved through rooms like smoke, visible but untouchable. I'd taken to sleeping on the couch, which felt fitting. It wasn't just a place to rest, it was purgatory. 3 days had passed since the confrontation in the living room. 3 days of cold nods, passive-aggressive silence, and awkward co-parenting where Lily sensed something but couldn't quite name it. And then one night, it all detonated. It was around 9:30. Lily was asleep upstairs. The dishes were still in the sink, and Danielle had just come home from what she called book club, but smelled suspiciously like whiskey and designer cologne. She dropped her purse on the counter, peeled off her heels, and stood in the kitchen doorway with arms folded. I checked your messages again, she said. I looked up from the couch. Excuse me. You didn't change your password, which tells me 2 things. 1, you wanted to get caught. And 2, you're either arrogant or stupid. I stood up slowly. You went through my phone again? Spare me the moral outrage, she snapped. You cheated. I didn't cheat, I said. You gave me a hall pass. You fucked someone I know. I winced. She said it like a slap. Loud. Sharp. Final. That wasn't part of the deal, she continued. There was an unspoken rule. No one from our circle. No one our daughter knows. You mean no one who would make you look bad? I said. Her eyes narrowed. I gave you freedom, and you used it to humiliate me. No, you gave yourself permission to have a sex life outside our marriage and expected me to just sit here like a dog waiting for scraps. Oh, so now you're a victim? No, but I'm also not a doormat. She stalked toward me. Why? Because she sees me, I said. Because I didn't have to beg to be touched or looked at like I mattered. Because with her, I'm not invisible. She stared at me, breathing hard, and then she slapped me. It wasn't a movie slap. It wasn't dramatic. It was small, fast, and precise. Like the crack of a book being closed too hard. I didn't move. Danielle stepped back, as if realizing what she'd done. Her eyes watered, but she refused to cry. You ruined this. No, I said, jaw tight. You ruined it when you asked to open the marriage instead of fixing it. She turned away, gripping the edge of the counter like she needed something to hold on to. I didn't want to hurt you. Then why did you? I was lonely, she whispered. You were distant. You worked late. You stopped wanting me. That's not true, I said. I stopped chasing after you because you made it clear you didn't want to be caught. She didn't answer, and I didn't push. We just stood there, in the ruined quiet of our kitchen, breathing in the debris of what we tried to build. Finally, she said, so what now? I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. She wasn't the woman I married anymore. Maybe I wasn't the man she needed. Maybe we'd both turned into ghosts pretending to be people. I think we're done, I said. She nodded, just once, then turned and walked up the stairs without another word. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch with the TV on mute, cycling through images of Rachel in my mind, her laugh, her breathy whispers, her body trembling against mine. But more than that, I kept thinking about the way she looked when she held Maya's hand, or when she bent down to tie Lily's shoe, or when she nervously told me she didn't want to ruin her daughter's world. I hadn't told her yet that it was over, that Danielle and I were done, and I wasn't sure she'd want to hear it. I sent her a message the next morning. It's over, I told her. She knows everything. The dots danced for a long time. Then, are you okay? Honestly, I don't know, but I'm relieved. What about Lily? She doesn't know yet, but she will. I'm going to tell her everything. Gently. Then, after a pause, I don't regret us. I don't either. But maybe we should slow down, just for a while. That last message sat in my chest like a weight. I understood, but it didn't make it easier to read. Okay, whatever you need. Thank you. Just don't shut me out, Rachel. I won't. I promise. And somehow, the honesty hurt more than the lies ever did. There's something hollow about an empty house after a fight. The walls echo differently. Softer, maybe. Like they're trying to pretend they didn't hear everything. Danielle moved out the following week. No fireworks, no custody battle, just boxes, a few muttered logistics, and a long silence between us as she closed the front door behind her for the last time. She didn't take much, just clothes, personal things, and a few pieces of decor she claimed were hers. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't need to. Lily stayed with me that first night. I made pancakes for dinner and tried to smile like it was a treat instead of damage control. She was quiet, too quiet. Her eyes flicked to the front door often, but she didn't ask when her mom was coming back. She already knew. Is Mommy mad at you? She asked over syrup-drenched bites. I paused, then nodded. Yeah, a little. Did you do something bad? No, I said. We just stopped being happy together. That happens sometimes. But we both still love you, okay? She nodded slowly. I know. Mommy told me. That hit harder than I expected. Rachel didn't text for 3 days. Not once. I didn't push. I told myself she needed space. She was processing, protecting Maya. But inside, I started to worry not that she was angry, but that she might be slipping away. And then Friday came. Another soccer practice. Another chance for the entire universe to shove us all into the same emotional fishbowl and shake it. Lily tugged at my hand as we walked toward the field. I scanned the crowd automatically. Rachel was there. She stood near the center bleachers, watching Maya tie her cleats. She looked different, guarded. Still beautiful, but there was a new edge to her expression, one I hadn't seen before. I approached slowly, letting Lily sprint off ahead. Our eyes met, and she gave me the smallest nod, a quiet invitation. Hey, I said, voice low. Hey. She tucked her hands into her jacket pockets. You holding up? I nodded. Barely. She gave a soft laugh. Yeah, same. We stood in silence for a while, just watching the girls chase the ball. Maya passed to Lily. Lily took a shot and missed. They both burst into laughter anyway. She's doing okay? Rachel asked. She's trying, I said. She asked me if I did something bad. Rachel frowned. God, that breaks me. She's stronger than I thought. Rachel looked at me then, really looked. And for the first time since everything went down, I didn't see fear in her eyes. I saw a decision forming. You want to walk? She asked. I nodded, and we started down the edge of the field, away from the other parents, toward the old bleachers. The ones we first kissed under. The ones that changed everything. When we reached them, she stopped. I'm sorry I pulled back. I understood. I was scared, she said. Still am. But I realized something. What? I was afraid of the fallout, but more afraid of being alone again. And the truth is, even in all this chaos, I felt less alone with you than I ever did in my marriage. I stepped closer. Then don't be alone. She looked up at me. Are you sure? We've got wreckage behind us. Kids to think about. People whispering every time we breathe. I'm not interested in hiding anymore, I said. I've done enough pretending to last a lifetime. Rachel stared at me, like she was searching for something in my face. Proof. Resolve. The version of me that stood up and chose her, not just in secret, but out loud. And when she found it, she smiled. It wasn't wide. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. She reached out and took my hand. Just like that. Not under bleachers. Not behind car doors. But here, in the open, under the clear light of day, where anyone could see. And I let them all see. The whispers could come. The judgment could follow. But I wasn't backing down. Not from her. Not from us. Later, as the final whistle blew and the girls ran off the field, sweat slicked and laughing, Rachel and I stood side by side. Maya ran to her. Lily ran to me. And for the first time in what felt like forever, there was no guilt. No game. Just something that looked like the beginning of peace. 2 weeks had passed since that day at the soccer field. Since Rachel took my hand in public. Since I stopped living in the shadows. Danielle's name was no longer on the mailbox. The house, though quieter, felt lighter, like it had finally exhaled. Lily adjusted faster than I expected. Kids have a way of doing that, especially when you give them honesty and consistency. I tucked her in every night. Made her pancakes every Saturday. Rachel and I kept things slow, careful, always respectful of what our daughters needed first. But the shift was undeniable. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about sex, or being wanted, or chasing what was missing. It was about choosing something real, not out of loneliness, but because the world felt less cold with her in it. The first time Rachel came over for dinner, it was awkward in the way any new beginning is. Maya was hesitant. Lily was wide-eyed and full of questions. But we didn't pretend. We didn't lie. We just sat at the table and shared a meal, all four of us, like people trying to build something new out of the ashes. Maya eventually asked, "Are you guys boyfriend and girlfriend?" Rachel glanced at me. I smiled. Sort of. Maya looked at her mother. "Are you happy?" Rachel nodded, her voice soft. "I am." "Then okay," Maya said, going back to her pasta like she'd just made a binding legal agreement. Kids are funny that way. They don't need speeches. They just need truth, and someone willing to live it. Danielle didn't reach out for a while. Then, one night, she sent a text. "Lily told me Rachel's been around. I hope you know what you're doing." I stared at it for a long time, then replied, "I do. For once, I actually do." She didn't respond, and I didn't need her to. Rachel and I didn't move fast. We didn't label things. We didn't rush into sleepovers or vacations or matching sweaters at pumpkin patches. We just showed up. When Lily had a school play, Rachel sat in the third row next to me, clapping louder than anyone. When Maya fell and scraped her knee, I was the one who grabbed a bandage and carried her to the bench. We didn't just become lovers. We became something closer to family. One evening, we sat on a park bench while the girls played on the swings. The sun was setting, casting everything in that golden, cinematic kind of light you only get in fall. Rachel leaned her head against my shoulder. "I used to be scared of what people would say," she murmured. "Now I'm scared of losing this." "You're not going to lose it," I said, lacing my fingers with hers. "Not unless you want to." She looked up at me. "You really mean that?" "Every word." She smiled. "You ever think about what might have happened if Danielle never asked for the open marriage?" "All the time," I said. "I think I would have stayed. Out of habit. Out of guilt. I never would have realized how unhappy I was until it was too late. Would you have met me? Probably. But we would have just passed each other in the parking lot. Said hi. Gone home. Strange, isn't it?" she whispered. "How broken things have to get before they fall into place." I kissed her then, slow and certain. Not with urgency, but with assurance. She didn't pull away. At the next soccer game, we sat side by side on the bleachers. No secrets. No hiding. No scandal left to whisper about. Just two parents cheering for their daughters, sipping coffee, and smiling when the girls looked up and waved. Danielle showed up late. She gave me a brief glance. A nod. Then sat on the opposite side of the field with her phone in her hand, like she was texting someone who mattered more. That was fine. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her. Not at myself. Everything hurt when it happened. But now? Now it just felt like closure. The final whistle blew. The game ended. The girls ran off laughing, sweaty and wild, high-fiving each other like champions. Rachel and I stood, side by side. We weren't hiding anymore. And for the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't surviving something. I was living. And maybe, just maybe, beginning a brand new game.